always so good to see you, Keith. I saw that I think this is the seventh or eighth Dateline about this case.
Number 7. Dave.
7.
Yeah.
Have you ever done another topic with this many episodes?
I don't believe so. No, I think 7 is going to be the record. And will that be the last one? We don't know.
Well, if it is the last one, what an ending. Tell me how this interview came to be, Keith.
Well, we'd been communicating with Lori for quite some time, and I suspect you might have been doing the same thing, Dave. And she would dangle possibilities. And eventually, she talked to Shane a number of times, and Shane Bishop, our producer, and then she struck up a relationship with Brittany Morris, our associate producer on this story. Brittany's a great up-and-coming producer, but also just a nice person. And Brittany arranged the interview. So I was very surprised, frankly, at this call. Lori can interview with us, and the jail says it's okay. They're going to give us 90 minutes, and I was astonished, frankly. Usually, as you know, if you go to interview somebody in a prison or a jail, they'll maybe give you half an hour if you're lucky, or an hour if you got to do a whole kind of camera setup and so on. But no, 90 minutes. So I thought that would be plenty of time to get what we needed from anybody, but it turned out it wasn't enough to get what we needed from Lori Vallow. I could have gone on with her for a lot longer.
Right. And Keith, she had mentioned to me at one point she wanted to talk to you before she was sentenced here in Idaho, but they wouldn't let cameras into that.
Oh, that's right. Yes, there was that discussion. Yeah.
Right. So she obviously has been thinking about chatting with you for some time, for years now. So the broad question is, what was it like being there face to face with her and trying to interview her?
Well, she came in, she winked at our cameras on the way in. She was upbeat, she was charismatic, she was friendly, she was practically flirtatious. There was an undercurrent of anger in what she was saying. She, I think, felt aggrieved about a good many things. And she bounced all over the map in discussion of those topics. But she had her own agenda, and she knew exactly how long she had. She's no dummy. And I think she had decided ahead of time that she was going to tell this shaggy dog tale that would take up the time. I wouldn't be able to ask all my embarrassing questions. And she could lay out this, frankly, big lie about what happened to Tylee and JJ. And that it would require such a big workup. She'd have to tell the whole kind of life story of her daughter Tylee, and spin some tales about that, for which no evidence, right? And the chore was to kind of get her off that train track and get her onto what we wanted to talk about, and a good deal of the kind of combativeness back and forth was in that process.
I've spoken with people who have dealt with her legally, you could say, also family members, and from what they've told me, their conversations with her sound like your conversation with her, that she speaks about what she wants to talk about, and even answers to simple questions are not given.
Right. And, a psychiatrist would have a field day with her, and I'm sure they did, when they sent her off to that mental institute, the state hospital, right, to be treated. And they said she had delusions and delusional disorder. There was some specific religious component to it. And that's certainly there, but it's pretty deeply seated as far as I could tell. And I'm often curious about, when does the legal system feel that somebody really is mentally ill? And what effect should that have on crime and punishment? It's different in different countries and different jurisdictions. she's going on trial again for the murder of her husband. And will that become part of the defense? If I were her defense attorney, I would say yes, but she's her own defense attorney, and she ain't going to say that at all. Because she doesn't see herself as mentally ill. She sees herself as the only one who has the key to the truth, and she wants everybody to know what the truth is. But the truth is in her head, and it's in a attractive, smart, bright, quick, with a quip and a talk back. That person with that brain is her own worst enemy in some ways, but also she is engaging and will take up all kinds of time not getting to the point.
You mentioned, now she's her own attorney. Did you sense a feeling of arrogance from her about, like, I am the attorney, I am in charge, no one tells me what to do?
Not really. More of it's a learning curve, but I'm pretty good at this, and the judge is being pretty lenient and letting me do what I want to do. So that attitude, but there was an aggrieved nature to all of this. Like this, nothing is ever fair, and not whining about it, but just I understand things aren't fair, so I want to do things my way and try to get people to hear what the truth is. That attitude. More than anything, I think.
Did she, I guess, what was your most surprising element out of the whole 90-minute conversation?
I think I was surprised by the how engaged and the raw native intelligence in the woman. She does, you can't. You begin to sort of ask a certain line of questions. She knows exactly where you're going, and she has a dance to get out of it, and she does that quite skillfully. And I was surprised at her capacity to do that. Frankly, quite often people who are, who are delusional about things will spin you outrageous, crazy stories, but they don't do so with quite the same alacrity and charm and humor as she did. So, do you get the impression that I liked the woman? I did, in a weird way. I liked her a lot. And yet I know that this is a woman who killed her children, participated in the killing of husband, participated in the killing of the wife of her lover, planned presumably other killings too, as she was going to go on trial for those things. And yet she is a very interesting person to talk to.
Right. And she stayed the whole 90 minutes. She didn't leave. She didn't get upset.
Even she said, well, we can't probably finish this in 90 minutes, so we'll just have to come back and do it again. And the jailer said, no, you won't. But curiously, even though I was terribly frustrated at the end of this, I would go back and do it again.
So in a way, can you see how maybe some people, I don't want to say fall under her charm, but could be attracted to her?
Sure. I could see how she could be the ringleader in a group of people who were addicted to some kind of out there idea. If they could be sucked into an idea of that sort, if they were susceptible to it, then Lori could certainly be the person who would charm them into following her down the yellow brick road.
You've interviewed a lot of people from behind bars, in prisons, in jails, exonerated, guilty. How does this one compare?
Oh, I don't think I'd try to compare it with anything. I mean, look, I talked to a preacher one time who told me about how he cut up his wife into little bits in a bathtub and put them all into a Tupperware container and took them out and buried them under a cairn in the desert. But even so, when he dies, he said he knows he's going to they'll be together again in eternity, and they'll pick up where they left off. So, and seem to really believe that. But I'm listening to the story thinking, oh boy, this guy, he really is wacky. But he was wacky. And I'm sorry don't mean to be terribly dismissive about somebody, but he was clearly mentally ill. This one believes all that same kind of stuff, and yet has the ability to make you enjoy the conversation at the same time, or be frustrated but enjoy the conversation in tandem. Odd. It was just odd.
Right.
It was exhausting. I came out of there thinking, oh my God, I don't ever want to do that again. But now I would. It's weird.
Right. You also spoke with Sheriff Ball, Detective Hermosillo,
Yes.
Doug Hart, some other people that we haven't really heard from since the trial, and Colby. What was your conversation like with Colby, Lori's oldest son?
It was a heartfelt conversation and about what he has gone through and how he is trying to rebuild his life. And I must say that I felt for Colby so much more after having spoken to his mother than I could have before. Colby has gone through an awful lot in his life, and having had as his kind of North Star and the woman of his, he adored his mother growing up. They were close, he would, but seeing what he would have to deal with and how he would have to dodge her behaviors and kind of be thrilled some of the time and kind of hide some of the time. It would be very hard for a kid, and the divorces he had to go through, and the huge fights with ex-husbands and court battles and the constant back and forth, and it just would be a very, very difficult life. And then to be abandoned essentially, and discover after his abandonment that his little sister and little brother have disappeared and were killed by his mother. Then he talks to her in prison. She finally agrees, in jail rather. She finally agrees she's going to talk to him, and he has her on his podcast, and she lied to him, and I think that was the final straw. And he was broken by that, and again he's trying to build it back, and I felt for him.
Right. It was a year ago this month, maybe even this week, Keith, when Lori was arrested in Hawaii and brought back here to Idaho.
Yeah.
5 years. Can you believe that it's been 5 years covering this story from, those early days in Hawaii to now a jailhouse interview?
Yeah, well, it's such a strange story that we couldn't let it go. Right? Of all the things that have happened in Idaho that you have covered, I mean, you were born in the right place, I think, Nate, but for a news hound anyway. But how does this one compare? Because you've had some doozies.
As you said, I don't think this one can compare to any of them. This is up there as far as, the tragedy, not that the others aren't tragic, and just the weirdness, the bizarreness. I mean, we do have the Kohberger trial coming up later this year that you've covered as well. And of course, the Christopher Tapp, that's still unfolding in Las Vegas, his now death.
Yeah.
So when can we expect an Idaho book from you?
I think you're the one I'm going to have to write it, Nate.
Right. I guess just take all the library of Datelines from all these different stories and do like an Idaho weekend, just a marathon of all the episodes.
We need more than a weekend, I think.
Right. Well, Keith, we look forward to seeing it Friday night. It's on Dateline, wherever you are. And if you're in the mountain zone where we are, it's on 8 o'clock on the West and East Coast, 9 o'clock. And then I think you can watch it on Peacock the next day. And then it's on the podcast the following week, I think.
Just places to listen and see, you bet.
All over. Anything you want to add, Keith?
Just that it's very good to talk to you, Nate. And thank you for following this story as assiduously as you have. It's been very helpful.
Well, always good to talk with you. And as you mentioned, the producers behind the scenes have been great to work with. And you mentioned that this might be the last one. There might be one or two
I
more,
don't know, maybe more, maybe more.
maybe more. We do that every time.